Hello, this is Dr. Cindy Woody with the final video in this TExES 268 series as we go to Domain 6, the last domain. Domain 6 is all about ethics. It just has one competency, Competency 11, which says the entry-level principal knows how to provide ethical leadership by advocating for children and ensuring student access to effective educators, programs, and services. So let's just pull that apart just for a second. We know ethical leadership means just doing the right thing and advocating for children, ensuring student access to three things: effective educators, effective programs, and effective services. And Domain 6 only accounts for 5% of the selected response items where it's being measured by itself. All the other times that the ethics are being measured on the exam, on the 268 test, you'll be doing that in concert with other domains. So it's all combined together. There are 8 competency standards or descriptors on Competency 11. A, B, and H are the only ones that aren't priority standards. So we have 3 that we'll go through really quickly. A just says that you're going to follow the code of ethics. B is about making good decisions of what model good ethics, good conduct, and integrity in everything you do. And H is about being able to articulate the importance of education in a free democratic society. So let's take a quick look at the descriptors that are priority standards. So Domain 6, Competency 11, has 5 priority standards. Now, I do want you to understand that right now, TEA is revising Domain 6, the ethics portion on the test prep manual, the review, but I don't think you'll be surprised by what they're focusing on. There's not anything there that's not already in the news and part of your training at your school and things that you're very familiar with as an ethical educator yourself. So let's start with C. Advocates for all children by promoting the continuous and appropriate development of all learners in the campus community. So I think that's a given. There'll be multiple questions about you looking out for all the kids, all different lenses on the children, different age groups, different needs, different types of situations, but you're always advocating for the children. D says implement strategies to ensure that all students have access to effective educators and continuous opportunities to learn. So if you're looking at questions that would involve that, this would be more like in Domain 3, where we're working on developing the teacher through evaluations and through coaching, visiting classrooms, and giving feedback. E is promoting awareness or promotes awareness and appreciation of varied backgrounds throughout the campus community. So you may have a question about celebrating culture or heritage. Remember, these are priority standards and they're expected to be tested multiple times. But since they only account for 5% of the selected response questions, these will probably they won't be standalone questions on things like A or C and D and E. F says facilitates and supports special campus programs. I do think that you'll have quite a bit of emphasis on special campus programs. And we've got a list here that provide all students with quality, flexible instructional programs and services. The examples they give are health, guidance, and counseling programs to meet individual student needs. You're probably not surprised that there will be social and emotional learning questions, mental health questions, counseling and guidance counseling, support questions, and we'll see one here in just a second on our practice items. G applies legal guidelines, example given in relation to students with disabilities, bilingual education, confidentiality, and discrimination. So note the commas. I would expect to see questions related to each of these to protect rights of students and staff and to improve learning opportunities. So we have been looking at questions in previous domains about students with disabilities. So remember, we always go back to the ARD for almost all of it, and that we want to make sure that all students, regardless of disability, have access to the general education program or Tier 1 instruction. For bilingual students, it's similar. If you don't have any experience or background in bilingual education, you can look at TEA's webpage on emergent bilingual students. But I would suspect if you've taught in a TExES school for long, you're familiar with LPAC and the process that students go through to demonstrate language proficiency over time. Confidentiality is those FERPA rules that you're required to follow at school. I would imagine you're probably pretty familiar with protecting student confidentiality, having to have permission from parents to disclose records and photos of students and just making sure that you follow the rules about protecting student private information. Discrimination, I think by now, if you've been in the public schools for long, you're well educated on avoiding discriminating against students. And I think that you would obviously, as a high quality ethical school leader, you would want to make sure that you avoid discrimination as you work to protect the rights of students and staff and to improve learning opportunities. So just want to point out one more thing. Notice that all of these are about students with the exception of D, we're talking about making effective educators and continuous opportunities to learn. So even though the strategies are to help students, we do have strategies that are about helping educators become better. And then G does say that we would protect the rights of staff. So don't be hesitant to select an answer that seems right if it's focused on protecting a staff member. But I would tend to think that if you're given a question with answer choices about protecting rights, it's likely to be more focused on student rights. If it's talking about an educator, it may be talking about misconduct or disciplinary situations. So let's take a little time to practice. Right now in our Educator Prep Handbook, and I've linked the link there at the bottom on each of these slides, there are only 2 available questions to practice ethics in isolation. And so we'll go through both of those. There are other questions that the handbook notes are under revision. There's 3 more coming at some point. But remember, you may be given field test items on your test. So if you have things that we haven't covered in these videos or that you haven't noticed in the standards, don't panic. You may be testing items that will be used on future exams. So question 14 says a superintendent reviews with principals district-wide data on allegations of abuse and sexual misconduct by staff members. And so they give some stats here about why the superintendent would need to talk to the principals about this. So in their district, 24% increase in allegations of staff members being involved in sexual relationships with a minor. 18% increase in reports that an educator's employment was terminated for sexual misconduct at another district and the educator applied for employment in our district. An 11% increase in allegations of physical abuse by a staff member of a student. By a staff member, so it's the abuse of by a staff member of a student. In response to the recent rise in alleged misconduct by staff, each principal focuses on ensuring the safety and well-being of students. And so they've given us 4 principal actions and they want you to drag and drop to whether the actions are appropriate or inappropriate. So I'm going to show you the answers on the next slide, but I wanted you to be able to see the items. So 1 and 4 are correct and appropriate actions. So on 1, the principal takes the time to report the incident immediately to the superintendent when the staff member is resigned, has terminated, or is arrested. So as soon as it comes to the principal's attention, the incident is reported to the to the superintendent. That is appropriate. And then 4, documenting the investigation and writing to insist with information that will be reported by the superintendent to SBEC within 7 days. So that's appropriate. What's not appropriate is number 2, that you would just drop the investigation if the employee resigns, or 3, that you would refrain from involving other agencies like law enforcement, CPS, or the district HR office in the investigation process. Because in this scenario, you refrained from doing that because you weren't sure if the person was guilty or not. Well, that's not your job. That's inappropriate. Those people will help you investigate these things. So if you want to pause and read the detailed description, this is it. And then 16 says, in order to support a strong school environment, a middle school principal proposes a counseling program that integrates career education, character education, and leadership education into the classroom academic lessons. Implementing the program involves collaboration between teachers and school counselors to teach integrated lessons. So you've probably seen that in your school, that you've got some social emotional learning or some other types of character education that the teacher is supposed to be teaching in the classroom in collaboration with the counselor's program. After introducing the new initiative and its core principles, the teachers and counselors are ready to begin implementation. Which of the following is the principal's best next step? So remember we talked about the entry point of every question. So the program has already been decided. We've introduced the initiative and the core ideas, but we don't really have anything in the program yet. So the answer is D, that the The principal would ask the teachers and the counselors to review content standards and the program's learning objectives to determine appropriate lesson placement and sequence. So that would make sure that when they taught these lessons, they were sequenced correctly and the content was something we all agreed on. Because you've all probably been in a situation where somebody's handed you curriculum and you didn't necessarily have an awareness of it before you started. So that makes sure there's lots of boxes checked off there. A, B, and C are incorrect answers. To save you time, I have copied and pasted them here. You may wish to pause the video and take a look at the description or explanation about why these answers are not correct. And then one last word before we go. This one really was the shortest domain and the easiest one. The school has the symbol of the lighthouse on this domain because the school does serve as a lighthouse. You're the beacon of light to the community. So in the way the test is set up in the test maker's mind, when you are being an ethical leader, you are supporting and championing all students. You have the belief that all students can achieve, that they are all here to learn, that all students deserve our best, and that all students are trying their best. So keep that mindset in mind as you try to answer questions. Set aside any preconceived notions or experiences in the past with students that might not be positive, and make sure that you're using a positive outlook and um, this mindset as you answer the questions. For staff, the mindset is that staff make a difference. Staff members can all grow. They are here for students. Remember, we're not an employment agency. We talked about that in domain 3, that staff are here for students. They must be reflective and they are willing and able. So we have had questions where there was one where the teacher was hesitant about co-teaching and had been resistant to planning with another teacher. So as the principal, you assumed that they were willing and able, they just didn't understand. And so those are the kinds of answers that you would choose. That they're willing and able, they just need to be coached up or they need more feedback. For services, you need to make sure, when I say services, I'm talking about services and programs, that services are aligned with needs. We have the mindset that all services can be improved, and that's part of that continuous improvement process, the needs assessment, the stakeholder engagement, that services and programs engage families, and there's a lot of feedback and two-way communication there, that they're all part of the shared vision, so they're not accidental, they're intentional, and they're purposeful, and obviously that they are in compliance. And then as the entry-level principal, in the realm of ethics, you are the champion for the school. You're the champion for all students and all staff. And you're the person that makes sure that everybody is on the same page about doing the right things for kids. You're the implementer, so you get things rolling. You're the communicator who makes sure that all the pages all the boxes are checked, everybody's on the same page, and that we're all understanding what the expectations are as far as the code of ethics and our legal and compliance pieces. You're the evaluator. So even though you're a collaborator, you're going to be the one who says, we need to step it up in this area. A collaborator we've talked about many, many times, and you're the consummate professional. So as you answer these questions, answer them as if you never get ruffled, you never get upset, you're always even keeled, you're always asking and understanding why, and that you're here for all students and you're making the school the very best it can be. So just one last thing I want to say. At the end of domain 6, you've got this. You've seen the videos for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now 6. You've studied the constructive response items. You have a plan of action going into your test. You've completed a principal prep program and a master's degree. You've worked as an educator in this field and you have many years of experience. You are wise and kind and you are ethical and you are ready to go take this test. So go get this done and let me know when you are the next certified principal in this great state of Texas. I can't wait to hear it because we need you.